Dennis Fithian and Brian Chapman. He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state when that light turns red. So don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth Chapter. That's right. Welcome to the Fifth Chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian. We're ready to go for episode number 48, and we could be on the cusp of a local player winning an award. Did you hear about this, Dennis?
No, I did not.
This is like one of the dumbest things ever. But if you looked at every single member of the Detroit Tigers and said, you know what, that guy could be a finalist, one of the 3 finalists for a Gold Glove Award, who would it be?
Jonathan Scope.
Nope. I'll give you one more guess.
I think I actually did see it now. Nico Goodrum.
Yes. Nico Goodrum is a finalist for the Gold Glove Award in the American League at shortstop, even though he only started at shortstop one time after September 1st. That's, of course, because Willie Castro took over the starting shortstop job after that. But, I mean, anything can happen. Lots of crazy things are happening in the year 2020. And if Nico Goodrum won the Gold Glove at shortstop, despite playing less than half the games at shortstop, that'd be a pretty crazy scenario.
Maybe it's like the All-Star game. You know, they got to have people that are nominated from all the teams or whatever else, and that's where Nico Goodrum, that's where the Tigers fit in.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I think Major League Baseball needs to conduct an investigation. Well, we're definitely ready for 5 fantastic chapters. Definitely want to thank everyone out there who is watching via YouTube, via Facebook Live, and or via Twitch, and all those who are listening to the podcast on Apple, on Google Podcasts, or on Spotify. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and participate. Of course, you can participate by sending in your comments via Facebook Live and YouTube, and Dennis will be reading those throughout the course of this show. If you're wondering what we're going to be talking about, let's take a look at today's book. In the second chapter, with Big Ten football on the way, beginning tomorrow, we got 3 key Wolverines football questions. In the third chapter, we've got 3 key Spartan football questions. In the fourth chapter, 3 key Penn State. No, just kidding. I wish, but no. In the fourth chapter, talk about those same old Lions trying to extend their winning streak to 2. Can they beat the Falcons, who won their first game of the season? And how would we feel if the Lions won? How would we feel if the Lions lost that game? And then in the fifth chapter, we get to the major wager. So an action-packed show for you guys. But let's start off, obviously, with the first chapter. And that takes us right to Big Ten football. As you can see it during the book, a lot of football and a lot of Big Ten football throughout the course of today's show. We're just 2 days away from the first full Saturday of the conference season and 1 day away from the season kicking off tomorrow with Illinois traveling to Wisconsin. A lot of storylines in the Big Ten, from coronavirus to the CFP to new coaches to players opting out. And obviously we'll get to Michigan and Michigan State in the next 2 chapters in depth. But one of the main questions is, can anyone beat Ohio State? Right now, the odds makers are saying pretty much no. The Buckeyes are a minus 400 favorite to win the Big Ten. That means that if you took the field, the odds are still that Ohio State would win. And their over-under is set at 8.5, which of course includes the Big Ten championship game. Dennis, is anyone going to beat the Buckeyes this year? And if not, who at least has the best chance to do so?
Well, I hope so, but I don't think so, man. They are a juggernaut, man. And you just look, I'll take Fields over the field, but, man, they might have their best offensive line. You know, Fields coming back. He's got more wide receivers than he knows what to do with. If there's one question, it could be their corners. They lack a little depth there, and Wade, really, you know, he's stepping in. He was a slot guy last year, but They're stacked everywhere. I think the question, nationally when they talk about Ohio State is if they're good enough where they could ascend all the way to 1, where then they would avoid, playing Clemson or Alabama in that 2-3 matchup, and they would get whoever would be 4th. And, maybe they would be able to do that if they just run roughshod and blow everybody out. And this year, where you only have 9 games and it's more of a beauty contest, they are going to be looking to, put the smack down on everybody. It's not – I know they said that they wanted to put 100 up on Michigan. I think they want to put 100 up on everybody to try to see if they can get and be number 1. But if there was going to be a team, I would look right to the East here, and I would look at your Nittany Lions, and I don't know. I don't see Michigan beating them right now. So after Penn State, I don't know who would be the second best team that would have a shot at them. I'm going to say Wisconsin just because they run the ball and might be able to keep the ball away from them. So that would be it. I think Penn State's probably got the best shot, even though every day that goes by, another Penn State player, something happens where I look at him and say, I'm not sure Penn State is the second best team, but I still think they are sitting here on the eve of at least the first game going off.
Yeah, I think that Penn State's the best shot to beat Ohio State as well, but I don't have Penn State winning the game. This is if there were fans in the stands, it'd be a prime opportunity for Penn State to pull the upset, and I think the Buckeyes would still be favored, but the Nittany Lions would have a good shot just because that whiteout is one of the most amazing experiences and one of the most difficult experiences if you're a home team or a road team in all of college football. And we got the Big Ten East Championship game between Ohio State and Penn State in the second week of the year, and there aren't going to be any fans in the stands. I doubt there are going to be any fake cardboard cutout fans, and if they are, I doubt it's going to be 100,000 of them in all white. And certainly the decibel level is not going to be what is. As a matter of fact, do you know if the Big Ten is allowing ambient crowd noise like we had for baseball and like we had for basketball? They are? Okay.
Yeah, they're allowed. There's a certain decibel level that they're allowed to pump in during the game.
Yeah, and whatever that is going to be far lower than a deafening Beaver Stadium crowd. But, I think that the Buckeyes are going to go undefeated. They're not only favored to win every single game according to ESPN's FPI, they're given at least a 74.5% chance to win at least every single one of their game, and that 74.5% chance is the game at Penn State. And as a matter of fact, FPI was I was a little bit surprised at what FPI was saying about Indiana and Michigan. FPI ranks Indiana as a better football team than Michigan, and when you look at their comparison against Ohio State, the Buckeyes have a 91.4% chance to beat Indiana, which is their second most difficult game, and they have a 91.7% chance to beat Michigan. But you look at the ability to run the table, you look at how they're favored to win by large margins against just about everyone they face, that's right on par with Clemson.
Yeah, I think the one thing that, I agree with all of that. The one thing is, I just remember how things have worked the last 2 years. Last year, with Urban Meyer leaving and Michigan having a game at home and having a returning quarterback and Ohio State not having a returning quarterback, I thought that it looked like a pretty good year for Michigan to break the hacks and break the curse and all of those things. And then after the first 2 weeks, I reversed that and saw that wasn't happening. But the previous year, I was kind of in the same boat that I am now. Like, oh, man, there's no way Michigan's going to beat Ohio State. And then each and every week, Ohio State played terrible, man. Maryland's running up 50 points on them. Purdue smacking them upside the head. Meanwhile, Michigan was playing well. They went into that game. And I thought,
10-game winning streak.
I thought that they were going to be able to beat them. They had the revenge tour that was going on.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they gave up 62 points, and that didn't happen. So, we say a lot of things heading into the season, and then once we see them actually play, it can be different. But going in right now, I wouldn't say I don't see Ohio State losing the game.
Yeah, matter of fact, I was looking. I also saw that according to SP Plus, an analytical way at looking at the college football teams, the Deep South Buckeyes are at least an 18-point favorite in 7 of their 8 games. They're a 5.3-point favorite against Penn State, 8.5-point favorite against Wisconsin. So yeah, I think that, and when I was looking at the Buckeyes, the one weakness that they might have could actually be their defensive line. Obviously, Larry Johnson is a great defensive line coach, so they're probably 2, 3, 4 guys that could pop up that we don't know about, or at least haven't proven themselves to be great pass rushers. But the last couple of years, we've gone into the season saying, all right, this Bosa or Chase Young is going to be a superstar defensive lineman drafted in the top 5 or top 10. And right now, they don't have that. So if a guy like Sean Clifford could have some time, or if whoever the backup quarterback is for Wisconsin has some time because Jack Cohn is out indefinitely with a foot injury, or perhaps they play Tanner Morgan and the Gophers in the Big Ten championship game. If they have some time. Graham Mertz, there you go. If one of those guys has time, could they perhaps pick apart the Buckeye defense that, as you mentioned, isn't maybe as strong at defensive back, at least to start the season? Perhaps, but I would still give the edge to Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm already tired of talking about Ohio State, and the season hasn't started. Here's Keith. The feedback right off the bat is saying nobody's beat those damn Buckeyes. I read where Penn State will be their biggest hurdle, not Michigan, which we knew. Yeah, that's the way it looks right now heading into the season.
Yeah, I think the other big question mark, and I mean you could certainly look at 100 different question marks, but the other big question mark for the conference is the big question mark that we've been dealing with for months, and that's the coronavirus, because they pushed back the season to make sure that everything was good. And you look at when we were talking about them pushing back the season, the biggest fear I had was they'd be pushing back the start of the season into the second wave. And that's what it appears we have. 63,000 cases across the country yesterday. Cases are really going up in Big Ten country. Wisconsin is arguably the biggest hotspot in the country. Michigan has a University of Michigan campus hotspot. And I was listening to the Yahoo Sports Football podcast. I was talking to you about that before the show. And Pat Forty mentioned that there are 7 games per week in the Big Ten. There are 9 weeks, so that's 63 games. There are no bye weeks, so no opportunities to move games backwards. And according to Pat Forty, 10.6% of college football games so far have been postponed or canceled due to the coronavirus, which means at that rate, there'd be about 7 Big Ten games canceled, about 1 game canceled per team. And if the rates are rising, there could be 8 to 10 games canceled overall. You also have to look at how, if anyone tests positive, according to conference rules, you're out for 21 days. That's 3 games. Who's going to miss 3 games? Could it be a star like a Tanner Morgan, a Justin Fields? Could there be 5 or 6 players per team that have to deal with something like that? And also, would the Big Ten ever consider lowering that number from 21 to 14 or to 10 days, considering the NFL is allowing players back a lot sooner than 3 weeks if they test positive?
Yeah, Jeff Brom's not coaching, the head coach of Purdue. He's going to miss the first game. He doesn't even know if he's going to be able to be in communication with the team throughout the game. He's pleading for that. He also mentioned that there were, I don't know, it was a high number. What did he say? 4, 8 guys or something like that. 4 to 8 players had tested positive for COVID. Now, he didn't say, there wasn't context there. It was Tom Dienhart who was tweeting away about it. He could have just been saying since, June or July, that's how many players, which, actually wouldn't be that many. But if it was 4 to 8 players this week, that would be a substantial number. It can happen. Like, I don't think if, you don't want to bet on COVID, but if I was doing it just for a second, I would say that if I had to put my money on a circle where it said, do you think there will be any games missed, or there will be, no games missed, I would put it on the, I think there'll be games missed, so, but you don't want to do that. You hope not. We could start talking about, well, maybe everything will be so haywire that they would actually push the season back for everybody. But I don't know, like, I go back to what I was thinking about in July and August, that if they could just get how many ever games, they just get out there and play, do the best they can. It might not be 9 games. It might be 7 games, and they might have to go, and there'll be people complaining. Maybe Penn State will just have 1 loss, and Ohio State, will only have played 4 games or something.
Well, that's when it gets really weird, because if you think about a scenario, let's say Justin Fields and Sean Wade test positive right now. They missed the Nebraska game, no big deal. They missed the Penn State game. Then all of a sudden, because of that, Penn State wins. And then let's say Ohio State starts really blowing teams out down the stretch, but then in their second to last game, their opponent has like 15 players test positive, and Ohio State doesn't get that 8th regular season game in. So as opposed to being able to finish the season 8-1 and sneaking in as the number 4 seed, they're at 7-1, and perhaps that leaves them as the 5 or 6 seed, and they don't get a chance to get to the CFP. I mean, there's so many ridiculous possibilities that can happen, even if your team does everything the right way.
Yeah, it can be, but the one thing that I remember growing up, you might not, chat, because you might not remember before the BCS, prior to 1998, they used to just go on the beauty contest, and they would all go to the bowls, and you didn't get to match up 1 versus 2, and then all the silly writers at the end would declare that this team won the national championship.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a lot like that. It's going to be a real eye test and beauty contest. That's why teams that are trying to make that Final Four, they're not going to be taking their foot off the gas pedal.
All right, Dennis, you ready to turn the page to the second chapter, or we have some more feedback?
Well, let's just look here. Here's some Go Blues on there. A bunch of Go Blues. And how come you guys aren't talking about Michigan yet? Well, hey, here we go. It is the second chapter, and we are both going to have 3 things that we are looking for from U of M in their game against U of M in Minneapolis. Michigan against Minnesota for the little brown jug. And, Chap, you go first, and then I'll tell you one thing that I'm looking for as well. We'll go back and forth.
All right, for Michigan, one question that I have is, I'll just go with the big one with regards to the quarterback position, is Joe Milton finally going to be a credible University of Michigan quarterback that Jim Harbaugh recruits? Because nobody that he's recruited has turned into certainly anybody that's worthy of being drafted. A lot of them get replaced by incoming transfers. He was supposed to be a quarterback guru, and that hasn't been the case so far. So if Joe Milton can be the guy that Michigan fans always hype their quarterback up to be, if he can turn into the guy that Jim Harbaugh was brought to Michigan to develop, then all the talk about the low end of Michigan's win total, 3 wins, 4 wins, is not going to come true, and perhaps they could get to 6 or 7 wins before the last game of the year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The quarterback position, since Harbaugh's been here, I expected him, to get 5 stars and these guys to be first overall draft picks. I guess it was wishful thinking, and it was wishful thinking, but when they finally got a 5-star in Shea Patterson as a transfer, I'm thinking here's a guy that's throwing to DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown. He's coming in, and you know what? By the end of his season last year, the guy couldn't throw the ball downfield, and that was really an issue with him all the way back to Ole Miss. So that was not that Patterson was terrible, but he wasn't a guy to lead him to a championship. Here's the first guy, and I actually thought today I would be sitting around talking about, Dylan McCaffrey. This is what you're looking for. A guy that can make plays with his feet, and he's a dynamic passer, and this is what Michigan has been waiting for. Well, it's not McCaffrey, it's Milton, and the hope is that Milton was so good that McCaffrey looked and just was like, I'm out of here, and that Milton can hit the ground running, and he can put the ball on the receivers, and he can keep his heads up, and that's been the biggest difference. It's the biggest difference for every team when you get great quarterback play. But if he can do that, and that's been the thing that's been eluding Michigan, as you mentioned there, real high caliber play from the QB position, and I don't think they needed to be conservative or tiptoe into this game. Get out there, put the pedal to the metal, and let Joe Milton do his thing.
All right, what's your first question?
Well, that was it. It was Joe
okay.
Milton, all the things that I said there. My second one is I'm looking at here is Rashad Bateman. The question, I'll just go and I'll look specifically at this first game because it's such a big deal, and how Don Brown's going to end up defending him. Michigan's got all new corners. They got one guy in Vincent Gray who started a game last year, one game, but that's it. Other than that, it's all new guys over there. Will they put Daxton Hill on him and try to erase him as a safety, as a corner? They're just going to bracket coverage him every single time and try to take him out. very interesting subplot. To me, that's the biggest thing that's on my mind heading into this game.
Well, and on that point, one issue that Minnesota's going to have to deal with is having a brand new offensive coordinator, because Kirk Sriracha, their previous offensive coordinator.
He sucks.
Well, hopefully he doesn't suck, because he went to Penn State. But,
okay.
Yeah, but and he was highly. I mean, he put together an outstanding offense last year for the Golden Gophers, and that's what Bateman and Tanner Morgan and PJ Fleck used to. So we'll see if how they adjust to that. My second question is about whether or not Jim Harbaugh is finally going to be able to develop a legitimate Big Ten running back, and not just a running back who's okay, like Vincent Smith, or what Zach Charbonnet was last year, but someone who could actually be drafted. I mean, one of the surprising, we all know Michigan hasn't had any good running backs since Mike Hart, but they haven't had anybody get drafted since Mike Hart. And the traditional Michigan football teams, from Jim Harbaugh to the end of the Lloyd Carr era, was always getting guys drafted, having guys lead the Big Ten in rushing, things like that. Whether Zach Charbonnet or somebody else, Michigan needs to have a quality running back, and not just when they're playing against Rutgers and Maryland. Obviously, no non-conference cupcakes this year, but they've got big games against Penn State, against Minnesota this weekend, obviously the Deep South Buckeyes, and against Wisconsin. And if they just have marginal running backs as usual, it's going to be a marginal season.
Totally legit question. Karan Higdon was okay, but he didn't get drafted, and you're looking for.
And he skipped the bowl game to preserve his or to preserve his health, to make sure he get drafted high, and didn't get drafted. Bad move by him.
It was. It's legit looking at the running back position. The third thing is I'm looking into is, you look for those impact players, and maybe it'll be a guy like Blake Corum, who's the fourth on the depth chart, but, is a speed burner. Maybe he'll come in and turn heads. But, I'm looking to the wide receiver position. Last year heading in, man, Michigan had Donovan Peoples-Jones. They had Tariq Black. They had Nico Collins. It was just like, wow, man, it's an embarrassment of riches. They didn't live up to the hype. Mm-hmm. This year they don't really have a whole lot. Like, they got Ronnie Bell. You remember him at Penn State on that last play there. He's their best guy. They've got some guys that are talented behind him, like Giles Jackson, but people keep talking about a guy from Honolulu, Roman Wilson, as being a speed burner and a difference maker. Can somebody come in like that as a freshman and be an impact with Joe Milton?
It's got to be more than just end arounds.
Yeah, that's right. Joe Milton. The one thing is Shea Patterson struggled with accuracy down the field, trying to take the top off the defense. And we'll see. Joe Milton can throw the ball 70 yards, but can he throw it accurately? I can hit a driver 400. No, I can't. If I can hit I can hit a driver. I can't even hit it 300 yards. But you know what? If you can hit it 350 yards, it's great. But you know what? A lot of people hit it 350 yards, but it's way off and to the right. Mm-hmm. And it's, you got to be straight. You got to be accurate. You got to be able to have touch and all that. I remember, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but it was the Arizona State quarterback that beat Michigan State 2 years ago. Remember, it was like 100 degrees down there?
Yep.
That guy could throw. I never seen, the guy had a great arm. He would go back and he'd throw the ball like 65 yards in the air, and then there wouldn't be anybody within 15 yards of him. And after he did it once, it's like, oh, maybe they just ran the wrong route. But he kept doing it over and over again. It was like, this guy sucks. Who cares that he can throw the ball 70 yards? He doesn't get it within 20 yards of a receiver.
Yeah, a side note, earlier this month I hit a 330-yard drive.
Did you?
Yes, it was wind-aided, but I absolutely smoked it, my longest drive in years. But I think that wide receiver question is a valid one, especially with Nico Collins going to the NFL and skipping because of coronavirus, the 2020 season. My third question is the one that's been haunting Michigan, and really, it's not even really the one that's been haunting Michigan fans, because that's, can they beat Ohio State? Mine is, can they be competitive against Ohio State? Because they haven't even been able to say, hey, we got a moral victory. We were able to cover the spread. We were within, 3 or 4 points outside of 2016 when the game went into double overtime. Most of the time, they've just been getting trucked. This year, Ohio State came out and said they want to put up 100 points against Michigan. I don't know that that's going to happen, but 62 or 63 points 2 years ago, 56 points last year. I mean, they've got to at least be competitive against the Buckeyes. Can they keep it to a 10-point game, a 7-point game? I think that wouldn't satisfy the Michigan fan base, but at least they wouldn't just be completely demoralized heading into their final game. You mean they can't just keep on getting trucked every single year, although there's every indication that's going to happen this year.
Yeah, usually I say, hey, it's a long season. Talk to me after 11 games. But this time it's talk to me after 9 games. So I guess 7 games because it'll be the 8th game. So it's coming up a little bit faster than it usually does. And I'm just going to wait till the end of the year before I see it again. We've seen it happen before. Last year, I really thought it was Michigan's chance, and that was over by the second week of the season. And the year before that, I didn't think they had a shot, and then at the end, here I was picking them to win. So it shows you, what preseason picks are all about. Raj on YouTube, sorry, chap, he asks us a specific question about Michigan and puts the Lions into the mix. He says, who would you guys pick to have more wins this year, Michigan or the Detroit Lions?
That's a great question because I was going to ask you for your season prediction, but I will say – I'll say the Detroit Lions because I know what my pick is for the Michigan Wolverines, but I would say the Detroit Lions will have more wins this year than the Michigan Wolverines. And my pick, which I have not wavered from before the start of the season, was the Lions would go 5-11.
Yeah, well, I picked the Lions to go 9-7. I don't think they're going to do that right now, but I have Michigan dropping this first game against Minnesota 30-27. Very close game here, but because Minnesota has their entire offensive line coming back, and Tanner Morgan and Rashad Bateman, and Michigan's bringing in almost all new offensive line and a new quarterback, a lot of relative unknowns at receiver here. That's a lot in a first game, and I just think that Minnesota, whether being at home with no fans, I still think that's a little bit of advantage, playing in Minneapolis. I think they'll just slide by 30-27. I hope I'm wrong on that. I also have Michigan losing to Penn State and then, of course, Ohio State. But, all of these I picked, heading in. And then earlier today, there's a rumor that Minnesota, their right side of their offensive line might not make it in this game, whether they're hurt or have COVID. I don't know. Both their right guard and right tackle. That would be a huge equalizer.
Yeah.
And, really tighten up that this game feels like it's a coin toss. I like Penn State for a lot of the reasons I like Minnesota. They have most of their offensive, 80% of their offensive line, and the other guy has started games, but I liked them because I looked and they had the most impactful player out of the two, and Parsons on defense and Freiermuth on offense, and yet Parsons is out and now Journey Brown's out, so that game seems like it's going to be pretty close too, but I'd lean Penn State's way a little bit here today, and of course Ohio State, but it seems like I'm down on Michigan for that, but it's just a big question mark and a lot of unknowns with the Maize and Blue heading into this weekend.
So you have them going 5-3?
Well, they're 9 games, so aren't there 9 games?
Well, yeah. It's 8 plus the bonus game.
Oh, so we're not picking the bonus game? I have them with 3 losses,
yeah.
So however you want to look at that.
Okay.
Those are the 3 losses.
Yeah, I have them in their first 8 games going 4-4. Perhaps, the West is not as strong as the East, so perhaps they can win that last one. I have a winning record, but I had them losing to Minnesota, Penn State, Ohio State, and Wisconsin.
Indiana?
No, not well. That's going to be a challenging game. The one thing about this Minnesota game that I think is important is that Joe Milton is a native of Florida, and we talked about this a few weeks ago. He's only thrown passes in warm weather. In college, I think he's only thrown passes in September, and he's from Florida. So a few weeks ago when we were talking about this, I said, hey, his first game could be in the 40s. I checked the forecast earlier today, and the high in Minneapolis on Saturday is going to be 30. That means that game time is going to be in the upper 20s. And for a Floridian in his first career college start to be on the road against a ranked team throwing a ball in the 20s, that's a problem. He has a strong arm. For him to throw rockets at unproven wide receivers and expect them to catch it, that's going to be an issue as well. I got Minnesota winning 20-13, and I did put up a Twitter poll, and as you can see right there, 57.9% say that the Wolverines will win 6 to 8 of their first 8 games. 28.9% said they'll win 5 games. 13.2% said they'll win 4 games. And nobody says they'll win fewer than 4 games.
Very scientific poll there. Let's get to the next chapter.
That's right. The third chapter takes us to the Michigan State Spartans. And we've got 3 key questions for them. Of course, they have a brand new quarterback that they'll be bringing in, Rocky Lombardi. Of course, you might consider the incumbent with the most experience, but hasn't been a starter. They got a brand new head coach in terms of Mel Tucker. Dennis, what's your first key question regarding the Michigan State Spartans?
Yeah, it's about those quarterbacks. We've seen Sunshine, Rocky Lombardi, with that blonde hair like Thor, throwing out the back, seen him on special teams. We've seen him playing some games. He's got a rocket arm, but also a couple of those games that he started, Purdue, that bowl game, I think he looked very pedestrian, and he's got some experience there. I think the 2 guys behind him. So who are we talking about? Theo Day, and then Peyton Thorne. The best thing you can say about Thorne is you haven't seen anything about him, so people like him. And the thing about Theo Day, he got in for a minute. I think it was that Illinois game, and then D'Antonio snatched him out after one or two plays, which was ridiculous by D'Antonio there. But yeah, people like the 2 guys that they haven't seen very much of because they've seen Lombardi. So I don't know. Yes. That's a big question to me. Let's see how they do. They should have some success, you would think, against Rutgers, because if they don't, they're not going to have any success.
Yeah, that's similar to one of the questions I had, and that is the 2021 starting quarterback currently on the roster? Because all these guys, Lombardi, Day, Thorne, and even Noah Kim, are going to be eligible to play in the 2021 season. And my guess is that all 4 quarterbacks are terrible because none of them could beat out Brian Lewerke last year or even make it competitive. And I think that if I'm right that they're all 4 terrible, it's going to lead to an awful offense in 2020. If I'm wrong that the starting quarterback is currently on the roster, then Michigan State fans are going to be excited that their starting quarterback is returning for a promising 2021 season. And if not, if their quarterbacks all stink like a porta potty, then it's up to Mel Tucker to either get a quarterback who can start as a true freshman, which you can do in the year 2020 and in the year 2021 via recruiting. And, is that going to be the next Trevor Lawrence? Probably not, but at least a guy that can start right away against these dumpster fire quarterbacks, or get a transfer quarterback. I think a lot of Spartan fans were hoping that Tucker would look for a transfer quarterback, and that didn't happen. I think that Michigan State would be a pretty attractive destination for, a low 4-star or upper 4-star quarterback that doesn't want to sit and wait and just wants to play right away. And it should be a good destination for a transfer quarterback as well who wants to play for 1 or 2 years before going pro because there's no competition.
Yeah, good point. I thought they were going to do it this year, bring in a transfer portal QB.
Yeah.
Which gets us to my second point as we go back and forth, the things that we're looking forward to from now Michigan State. And I will go to the aforementioned coach, Mel Tucker, coming in. He's a pretty straightforward, you want to say vanilla. I mean, that's fine, what he's been saying in these Zoom news conferences. I'm not expecting him to be a, jokester or anything else, but he's a pretty, straightforward dude here.
Sleepy Mel Tucker.
I just want to see what he's going to be like on the sideline and just see what his demeanor, how he acts, and that's one of those big things. The one thing that we will miss is that, D'Antonio always had that constant scowl on his face, and he wouldn't have this year because it would have had a mask over it. So maybe we won't know. If Mel Tucker, I might.
He might wear a shield.
Well, that's true. But, I've seen some pictures of him, but I don't know if I would walk by Mel Tucker, if I would know him. And then after a year, and we're just wearing a mask, I might not know what he looks like for, until 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, but I've got a question that is about Mel Tucker, too, and it's about whether or not he can instantly build credibility with the fan base on the defensive side of the ball. 2 years ago, he was the defensive coordinator for Georgia. They had a great defense. He's supposed to be a defensive guy. And if he's a mastermind on defense, we'll be able to see it in the first 2 games, even if they're not 2-0, because they'll be able to hold Rutgers to 10 points or less and 250 yards or less, because they still have some talent on that defensive side of the football. And they'll be able to keep the Michigan game competitive with their defense. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't know about instantly, but he certainly has a chance to do so by Thanksgiving, because their first 6 games, not strong competition. Rutgers, Michigan, Iowa, Indiana, Maryland, and Northwestern. Then they finish up with Ohio State and Penn State. But if he's a great defensive mastermind, and we can see it quickly, then in these first 2 games, and certainly the first 6 games, with that depleted offense, they should be able to keep the game competitive as long as whoever the quarterback isn't throwing pick sixes left and right.
Yeah, my third thing to take a look at for MSU coming up Saturday, and it's against Rutgers, is just really seeing just what kind of team comes out there and what they run. We are used to what D'Antonio was doing and what his offenses look like and what it looked like defensively. It would have been different this year because usually, the Spartans are always playing that Friday game on Labor Day, and traditionally they look bad in that game and almost lose it. And then D'Antonio figures out starts coaching them up or whatever else. I mean, it was a thing every year. They don't have that luxury this year, but just to see how they look, how do they come out? Going to be anything special offensively, defensively? We're going to know, hey, this is a Mel Tucker team. That's what I'll be looking for coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, my third question is, aside from sophomore running back Elijah Collins, will the Spartans have any exciting offensive playmakers? Last year as a freshman, he got the bulk of the carries, over 200 carries, almost 1,000 yards rushing, 4.4 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns. The number 2 running back was Anthony Williams Jr., only had 188 yards. That's it. No other running back besides Collins averaged over 3.3 yards per carry. That's atrocious. Is Williams going to step up and make it a 1-2 punch? Will a 3-star freshman like Jordan Simmons get playing time and make an impact? And then you look at the receivers, their top 3 receivers, wide receiver Cody White, wide receiver Darrell Stewart, and tight end Matt Seibert are gone. You got sophomore Trey Mosley, who's the leading returning receiver with 21 catches, 216 yards. Not impressive. Can he take a step forward? I think Michigan State fans are hoping so. They're hoping that Jalen Naylor can take a step forward. And then I look at the recruiting and I see that they got a 4-star true freshman wide receiver in Ricky White. He was their highest rated recruit. Can he crack the top 4 wide receivers? There's certainly the opportunity to do so. And if so, can he make a name for himself? Or fans going to say, well, he's just the number 3 wide receiver because somebody has to be. Mel Tucker did not put out a depth chart, so we're just going to have to wait to see if Ricky White or anybody else is going to join Naylor and Mosley in that top 3 to start the season when the game starts at noon on Saturday.
Hey, you don't want to give Rutgers anything, any kind of depth chart to go on. You want to surprise them coming up on Saturday. I don't know.
Yeah, and I was talking to you about this before the show, but Rutgers is kind of an unknown. I mean, we know they're going to be a bad football team, but how bad? I don't know, because when it comes to transfers, we both said that we thought that Mel Tucker could have and should have brought in a transfer quarterback. Greg Schiano obviously looked at Chris Ash's Rutgers roster and said it's trash, and he did something about it because he brought in 17 transfers, including 2 from Michigan. 1 was Michael Dumfour. 7 total Big Ten transfers. Are these guys going to be All-Americans? Probably not, but they might not be as horrible as we're used to seeing from Rutgers, and it could be a game like we saw at the end of either last year or the year before, where Michigan State needed to have a fourth-quarter comeback to beat them.
And Dwummy, the big Dwummy, Michael Dumfour, that guy's a good player, man. So he started at Michigan, so they'll have a nice defensive tackle. Having said that, let's pick this game coming up on Saturday. I like Michigan State to win the game, but it's a heck of a lot of points. And, Schiano, that's his first game, too. I'm thinking 20-10, so I'll take the points and the Scarlet Knights.
It's going to be a low-scoring game, and I would take the points as well. I think Michigan State wins 17-6. It's going to be a horrendous game to watch. Both have atrocious offenses. The high is going to be 46. That's not conducive to high scores. Both teams have new coaches, and they didn't have, a spring or a non-conference season to work through things. So I think it'll be a disaster to watch, but Michigan State will ultimately win. And in terms of win total, I've got Michigan State going 2-6.
I've got them with 3 wins. What is that game at noon?
Yeah, it's at noon.
All right. So that's good. There's a couple things going on at noon on Saturday to flip around and see what's going on. All right, yeah, Joey G, I think is one of your boys on Facebook. He wants to make a comment. You want to do something else before that?
Well, yeah, I was just going to show that according to the Twitter poll that I put up, 10% say Michigan State will win 0 or 1 game. 23.3% as of right now say Michigan State will win 2 games, so they agree with me. 56.7% agree with you, Dennis, that Michigan State will win 3 games, and 10% say Michigan State will win 4 or more games.
Yeah, well, you know what? I make a joke about Michigan State. Joey, who's a big fan of yours, because he says we are Penn State.
There we go.
He says he likes the Big Ten talk, and he's hyped for the season to start. We all are, man. Tomorrow it starts out. We're going to look at Wisconsin and Illinois. Didn't Illinois beat Wisconsin last year? I
think so. And I think so. Illinois is a 19.5-point underdog going up against a backup redshirt freshman quarterback potentially for Wisconsin with Jack Cohn out. That I don't know if it's an upset possibility, but 19.5 points. Could Illinois cover that after making a bowl game last year? I think there's a good possibility.
Yeah, I'm going to see if Lovie Smith still got that Dave Letterman beard going, and, off we go for the rest of the Big Ten.
That's
All
right.
That gets us to some Lions.
Black Santa. All right. Yep, that does get us the Lions.
Yep, and that is the 4th chapter, and the Lions coming off their big win at Jacksonville last week. We'll go for 2 in a row. They will be down in Atlanta taking on the Falcons. So, boy, Matt Stafford and Matt Ryan, these guys are the best of friends. They're BFFs. They're going to...
What about Clayton Kershaw?
We got a lot of Clayton Kershaw talk this week as well with Matt Stafford. But the Lions, they're not getting more. Are they getting 3 points in this game?
Yeah, it's a 3-point spread, I believe. 2.5 or 3.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the thing that jumps out where I just can't find myself picking the Lions in this one is would they be able to stop one of Julio Jones or Calvin Ridley? Yeah, but can they stop both of them? Probably not. Although that Penn State corner, Oruwariye, is done a pretty nice job. But I just can't see the Lions stopping both of those guys. I'll take the Falcons, and I'll lay the points.
Well, and when it comes to Oruwariye playing a pretty good game, he did so against the Jaguars, against DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault, with Gardner Minshew throwing the football, not against a former MVP with a potential Hall of Famer in Julio Jones and potential Pro Bowler this year and Calvin Ridley. That's a much different battle to go up against as a second-year, 5th-round pick cornerback in Oruwariye. I think the Falcons are going to win too by 7 to 10 points, something like 38-28. Both teams have bad defenses. The Falcons have the ability with their passing game to really run up a lot of points. The Lions' best chance to run up a lot of points is just the fact that, number one, the Falcons have a bad defense, and number two, like the Lions, the Falcons like to blow leads. I think that whichever team gets a double-digit lead early, that fan base is going to be terrified. And the team that's down by double digits is going to say, hey, this is right where we want them so that we can force that other team to choke. But, yeah, I think that in the end, the offense of the Falcons is going to be too much. Not only do they have that great passing game, but if you look at the Jaguars game where the Lions' rush defense was finally able to stop an opponent and a decent opponent in terms of James Robinson, who's looked pretty good as a rookie, they were able to do that because there wasn't as much of a need to focus on the passing game. Now with a big need to focus on the passing game, that the running game should be open for the Falcons, and it could be 35, 40, 45 points that the Lions give up. I mean, they gave up 42 to the Packers. The Packers have the best quarterback in NFL history, but with these weapons and with that sorry Patricia defense, I don't see them stopping Atlanta for more than 2 or 3 drives all game.
Now, you might want to try to talk yourself into, like, when Dan Quinn was the head coach there, they were so terrible, so they fire him. Raheem Morris takes over, and they play really well for him. But it was like the Texans did for Romeo Crennel when he took over for Bill O'Brien when he was fired. The Texans played a good game. They got the W, but then they were back to their old tricks of giving up tons of points and losing football games like they did in overtime last week. It could be the same thing. Like you feel like, hey, those Falcon players, they're like, it's not our fault. It was all Quinn. We'll show you. Back their interim coach for a minute, and now we'll find out if they're back to being those old, dirty birds that they were under Quinn. That's if you're trying to talk yourself into, the Lions. Two bad defenses, two pretty good offenses, matching Wentz, Matt Patricia over there. I don't see the Lions winning this game. The one part, you wonder if they got embarrassed, if there would be a renewed energy. I know there would be from the fan base, but would there be this renewed talk of possibly, blowing these guys out with an embarrassing loss Sunday? But I would say yes. If you just beat the Jaguars and then come back and get humiliated the following week, it's like, what have you really done? So I would put those guys, at least, back there on the hot seat with the possibility of it getting torched with an embarrassing, loss potentially on Sunday.
Well, they've never been off the hot seat for me, and I think most fans are saying that they're still in the hot seat. If the Lions win, though, and they get to 500, that's when the slappies get activated, because they got activated last year to a certain extent when they got to 3-3-1, and they certainly got activated when they got to 3-3 2 years ago. They win 2 games in a row. Then you look at the schedule. The Colts game next weekend is going to be the weekend after that's going to be tough no matter what. But then you look at Minnesota, who struggled, Washington, FT. You look at I think Houston's after that. The Lions fans are going to say, hey, we could go on a run. Not considering the fact that those other teams are going to say, oh, we got the Lions, so that's an easy win for us. So, but I think that if the Lions get that win, the pressure will really start to alleviate from Quinn and Patricia, because Lions fans will start to think about what if and can we go on this run. If the Lions lose against Atlanta, I don't think that there'll be any that Patricia will be in any jeopardy of losing his job, because they'll after just one game, after they just won a game the previous week, now they lose to the Colts and they drop to 2-5. That's when all of a sudden you start thinking, well, if you're supposed to be making a playoff run, and you have to be competitive to do so, how do you get to 7-7? That's the key. If you're 7-7 and you tank out the final 2 games, you can say we competed for a playoff spot. To get to 7-7 from 2-5, they have to go 5-2. There's no way they're doing that. You can't make an argument for them going 5-2.
No, I'm not going to try. I'll take the Falcons 30-24.
Yeah, I've got it 38-28 Falcons over the Lions.
So you like the over?
Yes. I don't know what the number is, but I like the over.
55, I think. I just like it under.
Yeah, 2 atrocious defenses. Yeah, and both teams trying to go. And then think about this. Whichever team has a big lead is going to blow it, or has the ability to blow it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no lead. 28-3, Falcon fans are like, no. Yeah, I get that. That's terrible. So it would be nice. It would be interesting. The Lions would be the ones that would be able to get down 21-3, and then they rally back. Wow. Crazy
Another
stuff.
Stafford comeback.
Let's get to the 5th and final chapter.
Yep, and that takes us to the major wager. And on Tuesday, I picked the Rays plus 1.5, and I was way up because the Dodgers blew out the Rays. Yesterday, I picked the Rays to win straight up. We didn't have a show that day, but I was right about that, so I'll take it. Only game tonight is Thursday Night Football. The Eagles are 4.5-point favorites over the Giants. I know the game started a few minutes ago. I got the even though there's no Penn State running back playing in today's game, not just Barkley, but no Miles Sanders, I'm going to go with the Giants plus 4.5. Number 1, it's 2 bad teams, so the Giants might win. Number 2, the NFC in NFC East games this year, the Eagles have been the Giants have been within 4.5 points, beating Washington and then losing to Dallas in the last 2 weeks. And the Eagles the Eagles have covered 4.5 points only one time this year, and that was against an undermanned 49ers team by just 5. And the Giants have activated Sterling Shepard, so I like the Giants plus 4.5. As for tomorrow, I like Illinois plus 19.5. As for Saturday, Penn State should be favored by more than 6. And Sunday, how about Bills minus 13 against the Jets?
Yeah, well, that's your problem. You bet too many games. But, if I had to, I would take the points in the G-Men tonight. But I put a big fat 175 on the Dodgers in that first game. That's what they were, minus 175. So I was able to walk away with a cool 100. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. I'm looking towards this NFL matchup on Sunday between two 5-0 teams. The Steelers going to take on the Titans in Nashville. And you know what? Steelers are -1. I'll take the Steel Curtain. Love that defense. Love the way Big Ben's playing. Love the full complement of wide receivers that the black and yellow have. And A.J. Brown a little bit banged up in this one. Steelers can play the run and they can get after the quarterback. I'll take the Steelers. And you know what? I usually go high and then I start nibbling away. I'm staying big. Another 100. 100 Steelers -1.
It's the major wager. That's what you're supposed to do.
I'm trying to win. I've been, and it's been working pretty good. I'm plus 600. I wish I was throwing it down since the beginning of the game or beginning of the back 48 episodes ago.
Yeah, I think mobile betting could be here next month. So there you go.
Uh-oh. Better watch out. That's I'll just stay here with the Fith chapter betting. Okay. Hopefully people are taking my advice and winning something out of it. There you go.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, the first Big Ten season, or first weekend with Big Ten football as we get the season underway here in the conference. That'll be fun. Of course, that's what we'll be talking about Tuesday when we join you again on the Fifth Chapter. Thanks, everybody, for watching, listening, all the things that you do, and have a great weekend. We will talk with you on Tuesday.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the